haven't checked the weather yet, but I know it is the perfect day to chat about adult Jewish literature. I'm Cheryl Stahl. Thanks for joining me here at Nice Jewish Books. Today, I am staying close to home in the greater Los Angeles area, and I'm happy to speak with Michael Shokrian about his book, American Playground. Welcome, Michael, and can you tell me about your book?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My book is a work of fiction. It is something that I've worked on for several years. It's about an Iranian Jewish family that immigrates from Tehran to Los Angeles in the early 70s. It is semi-autobiographical. It's not exactly fact, but it's based on my own experiences. I think it's very funny, and I think it captures a lot of great images and feeling of Los Angeles in the 70s in general, and the feeling of immigration in particular, and even more particular, the Iranian Jewish movement that started a few years later, but it was early on.
Yeah, I knew about this community in the Los Angeles area, but many people may not. According to Wikipedia, there are about 700,000 Iranians in Southern California, including about 50,000 Persian Jews. So there's usually a push and pull aspect to migration. So what pushed the Jews out of Iran and what pulled them to Los Angeles?
That's a good question, and it's a question that I used to ask my parents all the time. What pushed my family to America in 1970, 1971 was purely American dream related. My father was a merchant, and he wanted to join his brothers who had already come here a few years earlier to do business, because they really were raised in this idea that America is the land of opportunity, and anybody that wants to become truly successful would be doing it in America. So that's why our family came here in the late 60s and early 70s. Of course, 6 or 7 years later, as political upheaval was happening in Iran, and it was a religious revolution, a lot of Iranian Jews and a lot of intellectual Iranians, whether they were Jewish or not, decided to flee, decided to leave Iran. Most of them settled in Los Angeles and New York, but I think in Los Angeles mostly because they had family members already here, or they knew that there was a big Jewish community here. There was definitely a big Jewish community in New York. And as far as the Iranian Jews go, I think they were trying to find a safe haven. So Los Angeles and New York were places that there were more Iranians there than anywhere else in America, and they were international cities, and they had a healthy Jewish population. So I think that's probably why they came.
Yeah, I think that's pretty typical of a lot of immigrant groups, is that as soon as you have some people in a place, then more follow because they know someone there. So I wanted to clarify one thing, because we talk about Iranian Jews, but you mention in the book, you your character always refers to being from Persia. So can you talk about the difference between that, and then we'll get into the actual book?
Okay. I think that Persia is a more traditional and an older way of referring to Iranians. I think that a lot of Iranians who were born before the 50s and were raised before the 50s probably referred to it as Persia, referring back to the Persian Empire and to their Persian culture. I think Iran is mostly considered more of a modern / political term. It was something that the Shah of Iran, when he took over, had consciously made an effort to go away from the Persia part of it and more into the Iran part of it. So if you see a lot of Iranians born in the 80s or 90s, they might refer to themselves as Iranian Jews. Their parents probably refer to themselves as Persian Jews. But in the end, we're all the same. There's no difference really. It's just a matter of how you call something. Older school, old generation refer to themselves as Persians.
And probably generations, well, many millennia ago, there was a debate between Babylonian Jews and Persian Jews, and the community has been there 2,500 years. It's amazing.
That's right.
So let's go back to your book. It focuses on a boy. I guess his Persian name was Michel, but coming to the States, he chooses Mike. And he goes from being kind of the boss of his second grade class in Iran. He's the leader, the teacher relies on him, and he, with a little bullying, keeps the whole class in line. And then he moves to LA, and all of a sudden he is stuck being with the outcasts or the nons in his American school. And he desperately wants to be with the cool kids, the pros. So can you talk a little bit about that huge change in status for him?
Of course. First of all, let me just say again that this part is all fiction. I didn't have that kind of life in Iran before I got here, but I did have the second part being here. And the idea was that this is a kid who, in the beginning of second grade, I mean, as a 6-year-old or soon to be 7-year-old, he believed, whether it's accurate or not, that he had the world all figured out and his place in it was solid. And then he comes to a different country and where he doesn't speak the language, where he didn't make the choice to come. And within a few days, he's in the beginning of second semester of second grade, and he doesn't speak the language. He doesn't know anybody. He doesn't have his backup group of people. He doesn't have anybody to support him. And he's really on his own. And he believes he belongs on a certain hierarchy. And he's going to witness firsthand that that hierarchy no longer exists. But there are hierarchies, and he's going to have to figure out where he fits in. It turns his world upside down, basically, and he tries to figure out which way is up from day one.
And he had been a star student in learning
That's
English. Right. But as I know full well, trying to learn other languages, studying and kind of academic knowledge of memorizing vocabulary is nothing like trying to actually hear it spoken at a normal native rate and being able to respond.
Yeah, that's huge. And he figures that out right away. Yes, I mean this person, Michel, when he was back in Tehran, he was lucky enough to take English class, which they reserved for the good smart kids. And again, he thought he had his 7 words that he was felt solid about, and maybe he thought he was going to use those 7 words to find his way. But as we all know, when we learn a different language, learning 7 words on a book completely different than hearing it in action. And I think what I was trying to do as a writer was trying to get really into that sense of it's almost all oral, it's all sound, and he's just trying to figure out the sounds and trying to figure out if he can copy those sounds and repeat those sounds, and hopefully those sounds have meaning to those other people out there. To him, they might not have any meaning at all. He's still trying to figure out the difference between what, who, and why. So the reader goes through that process as well of what it's like to actually learn language, learn language that is completely foreign to the person involved. It was a challenge. It was a challenge as a writer to do that as well, but I thought it would be fun, and I hope I pulled it off.
Well, one favorite U.S. thing is mishearing song lyrics, and so you gave an example of that he thought "ban Donna run" instead of "band on the run," yeah. But he had a lot of similar confusions when he just heard a phrase and didn't know how the words divided out of it.
Correct.
It's really tough. And his biggest language tutor was Bugs Bunny.
Yes. I think that a lot of people, when they come to a foreign country, cling on to whatever they can that they feel comfortable with, and they feel like it's an avenue or a route for them to get to where they want to go. This character picked up on Bugs Bunny because Bugs Bunny was available. He didn't, this character didn't make a lot of friends and didn't have a lot of support, to figure things out on his own. But television is always there to help people along when they don't have it. And I learned a lot of American culture and a lot of English language from radio and television. And I thought Bugs Bunny was a perfect character for this main character because he embodied so much of America in its heyday. Those cartoons were written in the 40s and 50s. He had a certain streetwise vernacular that wasn't really used in the 70s, but it does harken back to a historical time in the United States. They had just won the war. They felt big, and they spoke in this very confident, cocksure kind of a way. And Bugs Bunny kind of embodies all of that. And I thought he would be a good guide.
And something that he could connect with the other students about too, since Bugs Bunny was and still is pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, for a while. For a while. And then he finds out that Bugs Bunny's not as cool as he thought. So that became a problem for him later on.
Yeah. So one other thing that your book really, I got immersed in the smells and tastes of Persian cooking. You talk a lot about his mother, his maman, cooking, and then contrasting that with the smells and tastes of American cooking. So can you talk about the food in Mike's and maybe your life?
Absolutely. We definitely, I don't know if all immigrants are like this. I think they probably are, but their food is a huge part of their identity. When they are not, at home, when they're in a foreign country, it's one of those markers, for them that reminds them of who they are and where they come from. So Persian cooking in our house was a constant. We didn't get to go out, to Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's or any of those places that everybody in our school went to on a regular basis. And for us, it was just like this. For us, that was exotic. But the cooking was part of my mom's identity, and this character, Maman's identity was sort of like solidified and reinforced through her cooking. And of course, the child doesn't appreciate it. He wants to eat junk food like everybody else is eating. And so he doesn't see it as a positive. But I think that hopefully the readers will get a sense of what it's like to be inside of that house and what it's like to be inside of an immigrant's house. Again, where the cooking is so much a part of their identity, of their cultural identity.
And it's really kind of an embarrassment to him, so much so that he throws away his lunch.
Yes.
Because he doesn't want his classmates to see this, quote unquote, weird food that his mother sent for him.
Exactly. He wants so badly to be like everybody else that anything that resembles something weird or something off, he tries to hide and suppress. There's one scene where he temporarily becomes a lunch monitor, and he gets to bring the lunches at around lunchtime, and he sneaks into people's lunch bags to see, what they have. Maybe he's going to steal items, and he makes this realization that other people had weird food too. It wasn't just him that had the weird food, and he kind of notices it in passing while he's looking for cookies or cupcakes or whatever he's looking to steal. But he notices odd foods in those lunch bags as well, and he kind of gets a different glimpse of his American classmates than he had before.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about two things about that situation. I know that there were Mexican Americans in the area at the time also. And so one thing that he saw in the lunch bags was Mexican food, which he eventually ended up trying and really liking. And then he got his classmates kind of lumped him in with the Mexicans, just being brown-skinned. Ah, you're brown, you must be Mexican, and called him Beaner, because if you're Mexican, you must eat beans. So I want to talk more about that, but I want to stick on the lunchboxes, that he was raised very traditionally, Jewishly, and I know that non-Ashkenazi Judaism doesn't have Orthodox conservative reform, as Ashkenazi does. But so they were certainly raised traditional. And he was really shy he didn't want to steal, even though his, the head monitor, lunch monitor, was saying that's one of what he heard as French benefits, but was fringe benefits of being the monitor, was that you could nab something. And he's looking and he's like, no, I can't steal that. No, stealing is bad. Can't steal that, until he got to the cherry pie. And then all of a sudden he was like, I can atone for it on Yom Kippur. he found something he couldn't resist.
Correct. I think that, people have those dilemmas on a daily basis. This is obviously like a little metaphor, but we all have our sets of morals, and I think deep inside everybody knows right from wrong, and you find ways to satisfy an urge or a vice, and still keep within those morals. And I think sometimes religion, whether it's right or not, gives you that option of I'll sin now, and there's a mechanism for me to atone for it later, so I'll deal with it later. And that pops up throughout the book, is that he does a lot of things that he probably knows he shouldn't be doing, but it would get him to where he thinks he needs to go. And so he justifies a lot of those things by saying, I'll atone on Yom Kippur. That's when I'm going to take care of all these terrible things that I'm doing, or whatever it is. And of course, the ending is, sort of a Yom Kippur style ending. But yeah, I think, he faces that dilemma. And I think a lot of people do. They try to figure out how they can be happy within the moral guidelines, but also sometimes they need to be happy going outside of those moral guidelines, and they have to justify it for themselves somehow.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. And if it's too spoilery, I can skip past this about the last scene. Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you about this. So, as you just said, all through the book, when he does something he knows is wrong, he says he'll atone for it. And at the end of the book, one of his best childhood friends, Shida, is that how you say her name? Shida. Her family ends up moving, and it's been 2 years, and now he's a little more confident. He's a little bit more ingrained. He has, different groups of friends. And then she appears, and all of a sudden, it's like she wants to tug him back to where he was when he first stepped in, because she doesn't speak English. She doesn't know what's going on. And now she wants him to guide her. They were best friends. And so he knows his way around now. And he has this huge conflict of, is he going to identify with this newcomer who doesn't speak the language? And he goes back and forth. You can almost see the gears turning in his head. And he suddenly gives it in Farsi, in Persian, an alphabetic list of all the different parts of his identity. And it was so beautiful. I don't know if you can say coming of age, because now he's in 5th grade, but it's still coming into himself and, integrating those different pieces and maybe kind of celebrating all of it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you recognized it and you saw it, because that wasn't, this book went through a few different versions, heavy rewrites, but the ending never changed because that was my goal, was to arrive at that ending. And yeah, it is alphabetical because I remember that when you're going through Yom Kippur, you do those things where you beat your chest and you admit to all your sins, and those are in Hebrew, they're in alphabetical order. So I thought this is his Day of Atonement, and he does think his intention was to never go back to that place where he was struggling and he was lost, and he was, I guess, humiliated and embarrassed. And once he realizes there's no getting out of it, and he can see that his friend, who he's known all his life, is really in need, he just bites the bullet, and he does the thing that he's sort of been avoiding from page two. Since page two, he's been avoiding, speaking Farsi or admitting to who he is or admitting where he comes from and all that, and then it just all comes spilling out in the end. And he gets the signal throughout the book. He just doesn't pick it up. Everybody that's around him, from family members on up, accept who they are. They know who they are and they accept who they are, and that's what makes them so cool. He keeps trying to figure out that formula, and he doesn't realize, that the formula is what Tutor Turtle was told by Mr. Wizard, which is always be what you is, not what you is not. And he had to figure that out, throughout the book.
Yeah, and he's especially annoyed because his younger brother seemed to be able to do this much easier. So Saeed,
Okay.
Also known as Precious, also known as Sid,
Yeah.
immediately connected with some neighborhood kids, and seemed very at ease with this adjustment.
Yeah. Sid was supposed to be based a little bit on Tom Sawyer's cousin Sid, who is this character who he's kind of a smartass, and he kind of gets Tom Sawyer in trouble a lot, but he's also well adjusted for for that community. And so I was basing a little bit of that on this character, but Saeed didn't fight it as much, and he did have an easier time. He would just go with the flow. He had a much easier way of accepting things and enrolling with things. And so Michel really was the contrast. He couldn't figure out how to do that. Maybe he wanted to leapfrog to the top of the pile, and he didn't want to go through that process. But there was that, he used the foil. You see Sid, and then you see Michel, and you're like, there's a way to do it, and maybe there's a way to struggle. And he found the struggle. He didn't find the way to do it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I alluded to before is that they were raised very traditionally, but when they got here and it came together at Passover, when his mother was sending him with matzah to school, and he couldn't eat any of the snacks that the other kids were eating, that he realized that other kids in his class were Jewish, that it hadn't really connected with him before. And some of them were eating matzah and avoiding chametz, and others were kind of ignoring it. So he's shown these different levels of Jewish observance.
Yeah. There's in Iran, there's one way to be Jewish. And in America, there's a lot of different ways to be Jewish. And everybody is comfortable with their level of it. And that's news to him, and it's new to him. So he really just, sees it all in full display at that basketball game. He sees one guy who he actually admires and thinks that, he's going to be an older, and he's going to be a mentor, or he's going to be something like that. But when that older mentor talks openly about all of the things that he's been trying to not talk about, it kind of shakes him a little bit. But is he a cool guy like I thought? or is he just as bad as I am? And so again, he has to figure out where is he going to fit in. These guys are supposedly Jewish, but they're eating cookies, and this guy is definitely Jewish, and he's not. And he's actually a cool guy. And do I want to be like him? Can I afford to be like him, or can I risk being like him? Um, so it's this. In America, there's just more of everything, and there's more variety of everything, including variety of how religious you are and how you practice and all that. And so it can be overwhelming, to somebody who comes from one way of doing things, the traditional way of doing things, and then you come to America, and it's the land of opportunity, and it's the land of options, and that can sometimes be overwhelming to a person to figure out, I guess I don't have to do this, but I can do this. I can do it this way. I can do it that way. And it's nice. It's good. If you're an adult, if you're a kid, it can be confusing, I guess. And that's what I was trying to convey is that there's all these layers. He doesn't have to feel odd because they're all there.
So, going back to the land of opportunity, so the father wanted to move there for more opportunities, and at first it seemed for better opportunities to be a merchant. But then all of a sudden he sees he has the freedom to be anything. He doesn't have to follow this tradition. And, when they've had guests over or talking to the neighbors, people have laughed at his jokes. And he decides he wants to be a comic.
Yeah. Well, that's all fiction, by the way. My dad was a merchant, and he's very happily so. But yeah, I think that I wanted to play with that theme a little bit because, the book is all seen through the eyes of this 7-year-old kid, but there are other characters and there are other personalities and involved, and they're all going through the same or similar struggles. And yes, you come to America for the opportunity. You stay for the options. And so when most men, I mean, this is not news to anybody, men have a certain role in traditional Persian culture, and in most traditional cultures men have a certain role, women have a certain role, and tradition demands that you stick to your role, stick to what you're supposed to do. And whether we like it or not, those roles are very restrictive, and not everybody is comfortable fitting into those roles or being forced into those roles. But you don't even know that you can question it until something shows itself to you. In this case, America showed itself to Manny Manicherian, and he realized, oh, you know what? I don't have to carry all this stuff on my shoulders, and I don't have to be the male model that has been thrust upon me or has been thrust upon humanity. And he discovers EST, which you have to be of a certain age, I guess, to know what EST is. It was this self-improvement program from the 70s where everybody was trying to find themselves or to find it and to get in touch with their own identities. It was a big movement in the 70s, and it kind of bled into the 80s a little bit in the 90s. So he discovers EST, and through EST he discovers, I can be something else. I can do other things. I'm still, able to, find myself and identify myself. And so that's what he does. He tries to step out, not as an unfaithful husband, but tries to step out as a man and explore other roles and other identities. And with some funny results, and eventually he does find himself, and he does sort of land where he's supposed to be, I think.
He finds a better balance between the different parts of his life. And so you mentioned that this is partially your personal experience. Did you have to do any research to write the book?
Not really. I mean, I did actually research EST to remind myself of what it was, where it came from, what it morphed into, and all that. But for the most part, and I did research. I'll tell you, I did research TV Guide to make sure that I had all the programming correct, and I did research Casey Kasem's American Top 40 to know which songs were playing in which seasons, in which years, and all that. But other than that, no. I mean, this was based on my experiences and my feelings and my emotions going through those first 4 or 5 years in America in elementary school, and then I just played with it as much as I could, and the characters went their own way, and so no, I don't think there was a lot of research done. I mean, I did have to consult my memory about, at some point I had to write down what really happened in a separate notebook, just so that I remember for myself what my actual childhood was like, because I was so deep into this book that sometimes they bled into each other. But other than that, no. I mean, I consulted my own history and my own memory as my starting point.
All right. Do you have any projects in the works that you would like to mention?
I am working on a couple of different things. Before I wrote this novel, my work was mainly in short stories. So I still work in that short format, but I do have a novella that I've been working on sort of as a side dish to this novel. And I have 2 other pieces that I'm trying to finish up. But of course, being a lawyer and a father and a husband and the publisher, sometimes it takes a lot of hat wearing, and some things get lost in the shuffle. And so for the past, I would say 60 days or so, I haven't been able to work on those things. I mean, they're all in different stages of completion, so I'm not worried about that. But it is kind of a new and interesting sensation to be in this mode of getting your book out into the world and making sure that people see it and read it and love it and all that. So that's a new thing for me. But once this book has found its place, I intend to go back and finish those other things. I think one of them is definitely a novel, and I think I already have a collection of short stories that I'd like to finish up and publish as well.
Sounds good. Look forward to seeing whatever new projects come out.
Thank you.
So, is there anything you would like to bring up about the book that I didn't think to ask about?
I don't think so. I think you actually covered it pretty well. I mean, I think I'd like people to know that it's funny. I think it's a funny book, but I think it's also a very heartfelt book that more than just immigrants can relate to. I think that the experience of going through elementary school is tough for everybody, whether you're local or whether you're a foreigner or whatever it is. It's finding yourself and identifying yourself and accepting who you are. I think is a universal feeling. And so I really did want to have the playground be a metaphor for what we all go through all the time, trying to fit in, trying to find our place, trying to get along, but also being true to who we are as individuals.
So it is time for Tikkun Olam. If you would like to, either using the book as a jumping point or really anything at all, send out a call for action for Tikkun Olam, for repairing the world, what would it be?
I think that religion is a wonderful thing. And I was raised in a religious home, and I'm proud of that. I worry about religion as dogma versus religion as teachings. And I hope that people will remember that the books of Moses were written by people. And we should not ever let religion blind us of the humanity that we all need to experience and also to recognize in everybody around us. So if there's a call to action, I guess I would say, let's all remember that we are always learning and we don't know everything. And let's not lose our humanity for our neighbors and our brothers and sisters and everybody around us. We are humans first, I think. And I hope that we can use religion to promote that part, promote the humanity part and not the dogma part, which I think happens a lot, especially right now.
Yes, very much so. All right, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So if someone would like to contact you, what is the best way?
The best way is to, I have a website, which is mishokrian.com, SHOKRAN.com. And that website has all of my other writings that have been published. It has links to buying the book. It has a contact link where people can send emails. I'm also the publisher of The Thieving Magpie, which is the publisher of this book. The Thieving Magpie is a quarterly magazine that does fiction and poetry and art and photography. And you can always contact me at editor@thievingmagpie.org. And you should visit the site because it's got some fantastic work by some very talented artists from all over the world. And I'm very proud of that publication as well.
All right, I will check that out. So thank you very much, Michael Shokrian, for talking to me about American Playground.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. If you are interested in any of the books we discussed today, you can find them at your favorite Board and Brick or online bookstore or at your local library. Thanks to Dianki for use of his Freilich, which definitely makes me happy. This podcast is a project of the Association of Jewish Libraries, and you can find more about it at www.jewishlibraries.org/nicejewishbooks. I would like to thank AJL and my podcast mentor, Heidi Rabinowitz. Keep listening for the promo for her latest episode.
This is Lee Wind, author of The Gender Binary is a Big Lie. I'll be joining you soon on the Book of Life podcast, and I'd like to dedicate my episode in pretty much the same way I dedicated my book. For everyone reading this, or listening to this, of every gender, you belong.
The Book of Life is the sister podcast of Nice Jewish Books. I'm your host, Heidi Rabinowitz, and I podcast about Jewish Kidlit. Join me to hear my conversation with Lee Wind, author of The Gender Binary is a Big Lie, at bookoflifepodcast.com.